May we undertake this transcription with hearts full of devotion and mindfulness. May the Gautama Buddha, the awakened one, protect and guide us, that we may not err in our translation, and that the true meaning of the Dharma be faithfully preserved. If any merit arises from this humble work, we offer it freely, dedicating it to all living beings throughout the boundless realms. May this merit reach every sentient being without exception, and may it become a cause for them to one day walk the path of awakening, attain perfect wisdom, and realize Buddhahood themselves. May all beings without exception attain liberation.
Chapter 13. Escape. Siddhartha left the king's room and returned to his palace. He passed through the beautiful decorated rooms, the magnificent hallways, past the sparkling fountains, and into his room on the upper story. He walked among the talented musicians and past the beautiful servant girls. But none of these delights affected his mind. He had only one thought now, and that was to leave. That night, after dinner, a strange force seemed to enter the palace. One by one, the musicians, the dancers, the servants became drowsy and fell asleep. Finally, even Yoshidera fell asleep next to her baby, Rahula. Only Siddhartha remained awake. Now that he knew what he must do with life, he would never again allow himself to fall under the spell of worldly comforts and distraction. Others might be content to sleep and to dream, but he had more important things to do, and for that, he had to be fully awake. Now was the perfect chance for the prince to escape. But before he left, he thought to himself, I would like to hold my son in my arms before I departed. Since he was born, I have barely had the chance to touch him. Yet when he saw his wife and child laying together, he realized there was no way for him to pick up Rahula without rousing Yasdera. If she wakes, he thought, it would be very difficult for me to leave. No, if I am to do what I must do, I should leave quickly and quietly while everyone is asleep. Stepping carefully among the sleeping bodies, he reached the window, climbed out into the roof, and then down to the ground. He went to where Chana, the charterer, was sleeping, and gently woke him. Hurry, Chanang. Saddle my horse. I wish to ride tonight. Chanang was surprised that the prince would want to go out in the middle of the night. But he did as he was asked. He saddled Katanka and led him to the prince. Siddhartha patted his horse and whispered, Kantaka, my friend, we must be very quiet. I don't want to wake any of the guards. Tonight is a very special night. As the three of them approached the heavy gates at the edge of the gardens, the door suddenly opened by themselves. Silently, they rode out into the night. When they reached the edge of the city, the prince looked back and vowed to himself, "Until I learn how to conquer all sufferings, I shall not return to this fair city of Kibblavastu." They rode all night. Just as the morning sun was about to rise, they reached a quiet forest where many holy people lived. The prince was happy. He thought to himself, "Now, my real journey has begun." Then he returned to Chanang and said, "My friend, I thank you dearly for your help. I've reached the place I wanted. Now it is time for you to take my horse and return to the palace." Chanang could not believe the prince would not be returning to the palace with him. He stood there, confused. Tears began to fill his eyes. The prince understood his grief and spoke to him again very softly. "My faithful Chanang, do not cry. Sooner or later, we all have to say goodbye. Here, take these royal jewels I am wearing. I shall not need them anymore. Return to the palace and tell my father that I have left in anger. It is not that I do not love my family anymore. Rather, it is because I love them all so much that I must leave them for now. If I fail, then it really makes little difference that I am leaving this day. Sooner or later, death would pull us apart anyways. Go now, and let me begin my search." Chanang realized there was no way to change the prince's mind. He took Kataka reins from the prince and slowly led the horse away. Many times both the Charterer and Kataka looked back at the prince with tears in their eyes. Eventually they reached Kibblavastu, where Chanang had the sad duty of telling everyone that Siddtharhar had left the royal life forever. Chapter 14. The Journey Begins. As Siddtharhar stood alone in the forest, ready to begin his great adventure, he thought to himself, "From today onwards, I am no longer a prince. Therefore, it is not right that I continue to look and dress like one." He took his knife and he cut off his long flowing hair, a sign of royalty. Then he met a poor hunter and said to him, "Sir, I have no more need of this silk clothes. If I am to live in the forest, I should wear something rough like yours. Let us exchange clothing." The hunter was surprised and delighted to receive such expensive garments in exchange for his own, and he quickly agreed. Now that he was properly dressed as a poor seeker of the truth, Siddtharhar began to look for a teacher who could show him the way to end all suffering. He wandered through the forest and spoke to all the holy men he could find. Everywhere he went, he was welcomed with respect. Even though he now wore rag clothes and ate only poor food he could beg, he was still a striking, handsome man. When the people in the forest saw him coming, they said to each other, "Here comes a very special person. His face is so strong and determined. If such a man is looking for the truth, he is sure to find it." Siddtharhar studied with several teachers, but was not satisfied with what he learned. "What they teach is helpful," he thought, "but it does not lead to perfect happiness." Finally, he heard that some very wise men lived in the kingdom of Magadha, where King Bimbasra ruled. So he decided to travel far to the south and east to find them. One day, as he's walking through Rahajira, the city of Magadha, he passed near the palace gates. One of the king's Bimbasara's ministers saw him and immediately ran to the king. "Sir," he said excitedly, "I have seen such a most unusual man in the city. He is dressed in rags and he begs his food from door to door, but I am sure he must be a great person. His face is so strong. He walks with such dignity. It almost seems that a special light shines from him." The king was very interested and asked that Siddtharhar be brought before him. They talked together for a while, and the king was deeply impressed by his intelligence, his modesty, his kind manners. Then the king said, I've never met a man I felt like I could trust more than you. Please settle here in Rajata and help me rule my kingdom." But Siddhartha replied politely, "O king, I have already had the chance to rule a kingdom, but I am not interested in wealth or power, only in the path of truth. I thank you for your offer, but I have come to your kingdom only to find teachers who could help with my search." Then the king bowed to the man in rags and said, "I wish you luck on your journey. If you do find what you're looking for, please return here. Teach it to me. But even if you fail, you are always welcome to return to my palace." Siddhartha thanked him very much and continued on his way. Chapter 15. 6 Years of Struggle. Eventually, Siddhartha came to the forest where the wise men lived. He studied first with a teacher named Arada, then with another named Oraka. In a short time, he had mastered everything they had taught him, but he still was not satisfied. "My teachers are holy people," he thought, "but what they have taught me does not bring any end to all suffering. I must continue to search on my own." He continued his travels until he came to the Narahajana River, near the holy town of Gaya. He crossed the river and entered the forest on the other side. There he found a group of 5 men. Their life was extremely simple. They ate very little food. They lived out in the open. They sat perfectly still for many hours each day. "Why are you doing such painful things to your body?" the prince asked. "Most people in the world treat their bodies very gently," they answered, "yet still experience much suffering. We feel that if we learn to master pain, we shall have found the way to control all suffering." Siddhartha thought to himself, "For many years I have lived in this luxurious pleasure palace. I was treated very gently, yet still my mind did not find peace. Perhaps these men are right. I should join them in their practice and see if this leads to the end of suffering." So he began this difficult and painful practice. He sat for hours and hours in the same spot. Even though his legs and his back hurt very much, he would not move a muscle. He let himself be burned by the blazing summer sun, chilled by the winter winds. He ate barely enough food to remain alive. But no matter how difficult he was, he thought, "I must continue and discover the way out of all misery." The 5 men were amazed. "Never have we seen anyone with such determination as this man," they said. "He drives himself on and on. He never quits. If anyone is going to succeed in this practice, it will be Siddharthar. Let us stay near him, so that when he discovers the true path, we shall be able to learn it from him." Siddharthar treated his body more and more hastily. In the beginning, he slept only a few hours each night, but eventually he stopped going to sleep altogether. He stopped taking even the one poor meal a day he used to allow himself. He would eat only the few seeds and berries that the wind would blow into his lap. He grew thinner and thinner. His body lost its radiance. It became covered with dust and dirt. He became little more than a living skeleton. But still, he did not give up. 6 long years passed. Siddharthar was 29 years old when he left his palace and all their pleasures behind. Now he was 35, 6 years with hardly any food, sleep, shelter, or decent clothing. One day he thought to himself, "Am I closer to my goal now than I was 6 years ago? Or am I still as ignorant as before? When I was prince and lived in luxury, I had everything a person could desire. I wasted many years in those prisons of pleasure. Then I left and began my search. I have lived in forests and caves and have had nothing but poor food and much pain. But I still have not learned how to put an end to suffering. I can see now that it was a mistake to punish my body like this, just as it was a mistake to have wasted so much time in those palaces. To find the truth, I must follow a middle path between too much pleasure and too much pain." He remembered that many years ago, after he had seen the dead men, he had meditated under a rose apple tree. After that meditation, he thought, my mind was very calm and still. I was able to see things clearly for the first time. I shall try to meditate like that again now. But when he looked at himself, he realized, I've been sitting here for such a long time with no food that I am tired and dirty and weak. I am so thin that I could see my bones through my skin. How can I meditate when I am too hungry and dirty even to think clearly? And so he slowly pulled himself up, went to bathe himself in the river. He was so weak, however, that he fell and almost drowned. With great effort, he just managed to pull himself to the shore, and there he sat for a while, resting. Chapter 16. An Offering. In a small village at the edge of the forest lived a herdsman and his wife Sojata. She had just given birth to her first child and was very happy. She took the finest milk from her husband's cow and prepared a delicious meal from it. Now as she was carrying this food into the forest as an offering to the spirits she thought lived there, she had often prayed to the spirit, and she wanted to thank them for helping her have such a healthy baby. As she entered the forest, she saw Siddharthar sitting there. His body was thin and weak. His face was radiant and handsome. Sojata gazed at him in surprise. have never seen anyone like that before, she thought. Perhaps it is the king of the tree spirits himself. So she took the specially prepared food and placed it before him. Siddharthar slowly opened his eyes and saw the bowl in front of him. Smiling silently to Sujata, he lifted it to his lips and began to drink. To her amazement, his body grew more and more radiant as he drank. When he was finished, he placed the bowl down and thanked her, saying, "You thought I was a spirit, but I am only a man in search of the truth. Your offering has made me strong again. Now I am sure that I will find the truth. Much good will come from this. What you have done today, thank you." The 5 men who had lived in the forest with Siddharthar saw him accept this food from Sujata, so they were deeply disappointed. Siddharthar had given up his search, they said. He is no longer following the holy life. Look, he bathed himself. He takes rich food again. How can we stay with such a man anymore? Come, let us leave this forest and travel to Rasani. We can continue our practice in the deer park near there. So they left, thinking that Siddharthar was no longer interested in discovering the truth. But Siddharthar, strengthened by the meal, prepared to meditate, and was now ready to find what he was looking for all these many years. He stood up, waded across the river, and headed towards what would be known in later years as the Tree of Enlightenment. Chapter 17. The Great Battle. The moment that the world had been waiting for was now at hand. Siddharthar, who had given up kingdom in search of truth, was approaching the tree. On his way, he passed a man carrying freshly cut grass and asked him for a small bundle. This he would use as his seat. As he grew closer, the air became very still. It was as if the whole world were holding its breath, anxiously awaiting what would happen next. The branches of the tree bent down as if welcoming him to come and sit beneath its shade. Siddharthar carefully arranged the grass into a small cushion and sat down, facing the east. He crossed his legs in a firm meditation posture. He rested his hands in his lap. Then he made a bold and determined vow. I should not arise from this position until I have reached my goal, even if I die sitting here. And all the spirits of the air, looking on, rejoiced what they heard Siddharthar's great plea. It was the full moon's day of the 4th month, and the sun was about to set. But the ancient story tells us that not everyone rejoiced at this moment. There was one force called Mara, who was terrified and angry. For Mara is the name the Indian people gave to the evil forces that disturbs our mind. Mara is our greed, our hatred, our ignorance, our jealousy, our doubt, and all the other poisons that bring people unhappiness and grief. When Mara saw Siddharthar sit under the tree of enlightenment, he was enraged. Calling his son and his daughters around him, he shouted, "Look, all of you, since Siddharthar is seated in meditation, if he is successful, if he discovers the way to end all suffering, what will happen to us? Don't you understand? We shall lose all our power. We cannot harm people if he teaches them the truth. We must disturb his meditation, or else we are doomed." So Mara and his evil forces tried everything to disturb Siddharthar. They produced a fearful storm and hurled lightning bolts down around him. They turned up a great wind until everything around seemed ready to crash down. But beneath the branches of the tree, everything remained calm, protected by the force of Siddharthar's meditation. Mara saw that the storm had no effect. He turned to his troops and shouted, "Attack!" The whole hordes of evil spirits, demons, nightmares, shaped, turned against Siddharthar. They ran toward him wildly, yelling blood-curdling screams. They shot poisonous arrows of hate at him. But as these arrows fled toward the prince, they turned into lotus petals and fell harmlessly at his feet. Nothing could disturb the peace of his meditation. If these weapons and fearful shapes do not distract him, Mara thought, perhaps a vision of beauty will disturb his mind. All at once, the frightful demon turned into the most beautiful and alluring of women. These bewitching creatures danced in front of the meditator, but even they could not affect him. Memories of the pleasure palace, visions of his wife and son, heavenly music, delicious food, nothing could break through the calm determination of these seekers of truth. Mara felt defeated, but he had one last plan. Dismissing his attendants, he appeared alone in front of the prince, and in a mocking voice, he said, "So, you are the great prince Siddharthar. You think you are a great meditator. So many holy people have failed to find the truth, but you think you will succeed. How foolish you are! Don't you know that it takes a great deal of preparation to find the truth you seek? What have you ever done to be worthy of success? First, you waste 29 years pampering yourself. Then you wasted 6 more years starving yourself. Now you sit here thinking that wisdom will just come to you? How foolish! Quit this meditation, or at least show me a witness who will swear that you are worthy." These scornful words failed to bother Siddharthar. Silently, he lifted his right hand from his lap, reached in front of him, and touched the earth. Yes, the earth itself was Siddharthar's witness. For countless lifetimes, he had appeared on this earth in various forms. He had practiced generosity and patience. He had acted lovingly. He had avoided harming others. He had meditated on the truth. He had done all these things, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a woman, sometimes rich, sometimes poor, over and over again. He had done all this just for the sake of discovering the end of all suffering, and the earth was his witness. Mara realized that now. He was truly defeated, and he faded away like a bad dream. Siddharthar was completely alone. The storm clouds parted. The moon shone brightly in the sky. The air smelled sweet. A light dew glistened on the tips of the grass. Everything was ready. Chapter 18. Awaken. Siddharthar's mind was calm and relaxed. As he sat under the tree, he concentrated deeply. His wisdom grew brighter, and in this clear and peaceful state of mind, he began to examine the nature of life. What is the cause of suffering? He asked himself. And what is the path to everlasting joy? In his mind's eyes, he looked far beyond his own country, far beyond his own world. Soon the sun, the planets, the stars out in space, and distant galaxies of the universe all appeared in his meditation. He saw how everything from the smallest speck of dust to the largest star was linked together in a constantly changing pattern, growing, decaying, and growing again. Everything was related, but nothing without a cause, and every cause had an effect on everything else. As he saw how everything was connected, deeper truths appeared to his mind. He looked deeply into himself and discovered that his life as Siddtharhar the prince was but the latest in a series of lifetimes that had no beginning. And he saw that the same was true of everyone. We are born, we live, and we die. But not one time, but again and again. He saw that death is only the separation of the mind from its present body. After death, the mind goes to find a new body, in the same way that a traveler leaves a guest house and moves out to find another. When one life ends, another begins. And in this way, the wheel of death and birth keeps spinning around and around. He also saw that our travel from one life to the next was constantly changing, constantly affecting one another. Like actors changing parts in a play, our role changes as we move from life to life. Sometimes we are rich and comfortable. Sometimes we are poor and miserable. Occasionally we experience pleasure, but more often we find ourselves with problems. And Siddtharhar saw that our condition change, so do our relationships with others. We have all been each other's friend and enemy, mother and father, son and daughter, thousands upon thousands of times in the past. Then he looked at all the sufferings in the world. He saw how everyone, from the smallest insect to the greatest king, runs from pleasure only to end up with dissatisfaction. When we do not find what we are searching for, we are miserable. And even when we do find the pleasures we seek, it only fades, and we have to look for something else. And he saw how living beings create their own misery, blind to the truth that everything is always changing. They lie and steal and even kill to get the things they want, even though these things can never give them the lasting happiness they desire. And the more their mind fills with greed and hatred, the more they harm each other and themselves. Each harmful action leads them to more and more unhappiness. They are searching for peace, yet find nothing but pain. Finally, he discovered the way to end all this suffering. If a person could truly see the truth as he himself has seen it this night, all confused, running from pleasure and away from pain would stop. Oh, any more greed and hatred in our mind, we would never do anything to harm anyone else. Having overcome all the selfishness in our mind, we shall have destroyed the cause of unhappiness completely. With our hatred removed, our hearts will fill with love, and this love would bring us a peace and a happiness unlike anything we had ever felt. When Siddtharhar has seen all this, even the last speck of darkness disappeared from his mind. He was filled with a radiant, clear light. He was no longer an ordinary person. He had become fully enlightened to the truth. He was now a Buddha, a fully awakened one. He had reached his goal. With a calm and peaceful smile, he arose from his meditation. It was morning, and in the east, the sun was beginning to rise. Chapter 19. Whom to Teach. All of nature rejoiced that glorious morning. Fresh flowers blossomed everywhere and sent their sweet perfume into the air. Birds sang joyfully. Creatures everywhere forgot their fear. Rainbows and beautiful colored clouds appeared in the sky. And people marveled to see such wondrous sights. Buddha himself was filled with the highest happiness. His mind, free from all darkness and pain, felt a boundless joy. For days and weeks he stayed near the tree of enlightenment, enjoying the bliss and happiness only a Buddha knows. Then he thought, it was so difficult for me to reach the end of suffering and become a Buddha. I had to work so hard for so long. When I see how blind and ignorant most people are, I wonder if there's anyone who could understand the truth I have discovered. How could I possibly teach them? Perhaps it is better for me to live the rest of my life in the forest alone and enjoy the happiness of being a Buddha myself. Then he heard an inner voice, and the voice said, "Please do not forget us. We are the suffering beings of the world. We have been waiting for this moment ever since your birth. And even before that, we have hoped and prayed that many years that you would leave the princely life and discover the way to end all suffering. Now that you have found this path, please teach it to us. Unlike you, we are still suffering." But another thought arose in Buddha's mind. Who will be able to follow the teachings I have to give? Who is strong and brave enough? Who will try hard and long enough? And the inner voice came again. It is true that our minds are clouded in ignorance, O Buddha. But for some people, this ignorance is not so thick. They will be able to understand you. For their sake, please teach us all the true path. Then Buddha smiled and said, Of course. I shall teach. The only reason I left the princely life was to find a way to help others. Now that I have become a Buddha, I shall do everything I can. But even a Buddha cannot remove the sufferings of others if they do not try to help themselves. Perhaps people must want to get better before a doctor can cure them. In the same way, they must want to hear the teaching of the truth before anyone can help them. But whoever comes to me with an open mind will find that I'm ready to teach them in every way I can. Then he thought, who among all the people in the world shall be the first I teach? Who is the most ready? He remembered Arada and Udaka, the two teachers he had met 6 years ago. They would be the best to teach, he thought. But I can see that they have already died and left this world. Then he thought of the 5 men who had lived with him for so long in the forest. They are ready to understand the truth. I shall teach them first. He knew he could find these men in the deer park near Varasani, the holiest city of ancient India. I shall go there, Buddha proclaimed, and begin the work I came to do. Chapter 20. The First Teaching. As Buddha journeyed toward Varasani, people were attracted to him. He was tall and handsome. He moved with dignity and grace. Just seeing him brought calmness and joy to the people. He spoke kind and gentle words of comfort to everyone he met. Whether they were rich or poor, simple or intelligent, of noble birth or low, Buddha treated them all equally, with great love and great respect. Finally, he reached Deer Park. From a distance, the 5 men saw him approaching. Quickly, they whispered to one another, here comes that good-for-nothing Siddtharhar. Let us have nothing to do with such a quitter. Ignore him if he comes near. But as Buddha drew closer, the men immediately felt that there was something very special about him. Forgetting their plan to ignore him, they automatically stood up as he approached. With great respect, they prepared a seat for him. They took his robe, they brought him water, and they said, "Welcome, Siddharthar, to the Deer Park. We are honored that you have joined us here." Buddha answered, "I thank you for your kind welcome, O monks. But you should know that I am no longer simply Siddharthar. It is no longer correct for you to call me by that name." "But what name should we call you then?" they asked. "The whole world is asleep in ignorance," he answered. "When someone discovers the truth, he or she is asleep no longer. Now I am awake, having discovered the truth. All such awakened ones are called Buddha." Then the 5 men, with great respect, said, "O Buddha, please teach us what you have learned, so that we too may awaken." And so, in answer to their requests, Buddha delivered his first teaching. It is called Turning the Wheel of Dharma, and Dharma, pronounced Dharma, is the truth he discovered. "O monks," he began, "you must know that There are 4 noble truths. The first is the noble truth of suffering. Life is filled with the misery of birth, old age, sickness, and death. People chase after pleasure, but only find pain. Even when they do not find something pleasant, they soon grow tired of it. Nowhere is there any real satisfaction or peace. Second is the noble truth of the cause of suffering. When our mind is filled with greed or desire, sufferings of all type automatically flow. It is ignorant and greedy attitude is the cause of all our dissatisfaction, robbing us of peace in our mind. Third is the noble truth of the end of suffering. When we remove all ignorant cravings and desires from our heart, all our suffering and dissatisfaction will come to an end. We shall experience a happiness far greater than our ordinary pleasures, and a peace that is beyond words. Finally, the 4th truth is the noble truth of the path. This path leads to the end of all suffering. If we avoid harming all other living things, if we sharpen and focus our minds, and if we gain wisdom, each of us can reach perfect happiness. The end of all misery. When they heard these words, the 5 men felt as happy as if they had found a great treasure of gold. "Oh, Buddha," they said, "you have indeed found the truth. Please teach us the path to perfect wisdom and happiness, and we shall be your followers." It is said that many unseen spirits also heard this first teaching, and they flew to the end of the earth, crying, "The Buddha has begun to teach. Let all the world rejoice." Chapter 21. A Mother's Grief. Buddha taught in many ways, to simple people and to children. He taught by telling stories to those of high intelligence. He gave detailed explanations of the path. To others, he taught without speaking any words at all. But perhaps the most powerful teaching was his own example. The very way he lived his life, he always acted with kindness and love. He was patient with everyone, even the most ignorant and foolish. Very soon, many people were attracted to him and became his followers. If someone had a problem, he or she would go to Buddha and ask his advice. There was one woman named Gautami whose child had just died. She was so upset by this that she had lost her reason completely. She went everywhere, trying to bring her child back to life. Her friend felt sorry for her and said, "Gautami, you should go see Buddha. Perhaps he can help you." So she went before Buddha, still holding her child in her arms. Please bring him back to life for me," she cried. Very gently, Buddha answered to her, "I can help you, Gautami, but first you must bring me something. I need one small mustard seed. However, it must come from a house where no one has ever died." Gautami quickly went in search of a mustard seed. She asked at one home, and the woman there answered, "Of course you can have a mustard seed. You can have whatever you want, but you should know that last year my husband died. Oh, Gautami replied, then I must search elsewhere. And she ran off to the next house. But wherever she went, the same thing happened. Everyone wanted to help her, but in every family she visited, someone had died. One person told her, 3 years ago I lost my daughter. Another said, my brother died here yesterday. It was always the same. At the end of the day, she returned to Buddha. What have you found, Gautami? He asked. Where is your mustard seed? And where is your son? You are not carrying him anymore. She answered, O Buddha, today I have discovered that I am not the only one who had lost a loved one. Everywhere people have died. I see how foolish I was to think that I could have bring my son back to life. I have accepted his death, and this afternoon I buried him. Now I have returned to you to hear your teachings. I am ready to listen. Then Buddha said, Gautami, you have learned a great deal today. Death must come to everyone, sooner or later. But if you have learned the truth, you can live and die in happiness. Come, I shall teach you. And so he taught her. And soon she found more peace and happiness than she had ever known before. Chapter 22. The Angry Young Man. There was once a young man who heard about the Buddha and became very angry. He did not like that so many people followed this teacher. So he went to the Buddha and began insulting him with harsh and cruel words. But Buddha was not upset by these insults. Instead, he asked the young man this. Tell me, if you buy a gift for someone and that person doesn't take it, to whom does the gift belong to? The man was surprised to be asked such a strange question and answered, It would belong to me because I brought the gift. The Buddha smiled and said, That is correct, and it is exactly the same with your anger. If you become angry with me and I do not get insulted, then the anger falls back to you. You are then the only one who becomes unhappy, not me. All you have done is hurt yourself. If you want to stop hurting yourself, you must get rid of your anger and become loving instead. When you hate others, you yourself become unhappy. But when you love others, everyone is happy. The young man listened closely to these wise words of the Buddha. You are right, O Blessed One, he said. Please teach me the path of love. I wish to become your follower. And Buddha answered, Of course I shall teach anyone who truly wants to learn. Come with me. Chapter 23. 3 Words of Praise. Soon Buddha had a great number of followers or disciples who traveled with him from place to place. One day, one of them came up to him and said, O Blessed One, you are certainly the greatest of all teachers who have ever lived. Buddha was not flattered by his praise. Instead, he asked the disciple, Tell me, have you met all the great teachers who have appeared in the past? No, he answered. Of course not. And do you know all the teachers who have lived now? And who will be born in the future? No, I don't, he answered again. And so the Buddha said, then it is foolish to say that I am the greatest of all teachers. You have no way of knowing if this is true or not. But I only wanted to praise you, the disciple replied, because your teaching are so excellent and helpful. Then Buddha said, if you find my teaching helpful, the best thing to do is to practice them. Do not waste your energy praising me. The only reason I have come into the world is to teach others. If you want to praise me, follow the teaching. This will please me much more than praising. At one time, Buddha asked a disciple, if you want to buy some precious gold, will you pay for it without testing it first? No, of course not, was the answer. It might be fake. Then I would be wasting my money. Buddha replied, it is exactly the same way with my teaching. You should never accept what I say as true, simply because I have said it. Rather, you should test the teaching yourself to see if they are true or not. If you find that they are true and helpful, then practice them. But do not do so merely out of respect for me. Also, do not criticize the teaching of others and say that they are no good. There are many other great teachers in this world. They all have their own way of teaching and helping people. So do not insult any of them. This is not your business. Your only business is to find happiness and help others find it too. Chapter 24. Kindness to Animals. In those days, it was common in India for people to kill animals as a sacrifice, an offering to their gods. This was supposed to make the gods happy. Then the gods would give the people what they prayed for. Or rain for their crops. Buddha saw that this custom was cruel and mistaken, as he had with the wounded swan when he was still a young boy. Buddha tried to protect the life and relive the suffering of all beings, animals and humans alike. He not only wished to save the sheep, the cow, and the other animals from being sacrificed, he wished to protect the people who wanted to kill them. For he knew that those who sacrificed animals were actually creating the cause for their own future suffering. Buddha taught this. It is not right to make another unhappy so that you can be happy. Everyone wants to remain alive just as you do. Therefore, if you sacrifice an animal, you are just being selfish. And I have again and again that a selfish person finds nothing but unhappiness in life. Many of the people who heard these words of wisdom saw that they are true, and immediately they gave up their customs of sacrificing animals. In this way, a great deal of unhappiness was brought to an end. Chapter 25. The Power of Love. Buddha never forgot the promises he had made to King Brimbrashar to return and give him teaching. So when the time was right, he journeyed to Rajara. Outside the royal city was a hill called Vulture's Peak. And Buddha and his disciples went and stayed there. King Brimbarsha often went to Vulture's Peak to hear the words of Buddha. The people of the city also went, and soon the number of Buddha's followers grew very large. After some time, the king and several other wealthy people gave Buddha and his followers parks where everyone could stay and listen to his teaching in comfort. But Buddha's cousin, the Vidatta, became very jealous. He has so many people following him, he thought, and everyone shows him so much respect. I am as great as he is, but they all ignore me. I must destroy him. He knew he would need help to kill the Buddha, so he went to King Bimbasara's son. Do you want to be king? He asked. Why should your father have all the wealth and power? Come, if you help me kill the Buddha, I shall help you kill your father. Then you can become king in this place. The king's son listened to this wicked word, and he agreed. The two of them tried in many ways to murder the Buddha. One day, while Buddha was sitting in meditation near Vulture's Peak, they rolled a very large boulder down the hill towards him. But just before it was going to crush him, the rock split in half, leaving Buddha unharmed. Another time, Buddha was walking through the city with several of his closest disciples. The two men knew he was coming, and they were ready. They had brought an elephant and had given it lots of liquor to drink. When it was quite drunk, they beat it with a stick until it was crazier than angry. Another time, Buddha was walking through the city with several of his closest disciples. The two men knew he was coming, and they were ready. They had brought an elephant and had given it lots of liquor to drink. When it was quite drunk, they beat it with sticks until it was crazed with anger. Then they released it in the direction of the Buddha, hoping the elephant would trample him to death. When the disciples saw the enraged elephant charging towards them, they ran away in fear, all except Ananda, Buddha's closest companion, who stayed by his teacher's side, holding to Buddha's robe. Buddha saw the elephant coming, and instead of being frightened and angry, he felt great love and pity for the poor beast. Even though the elephant was drunk and crazed, it felt the power of Buddha's love. It stopped charging. It walked over to Buddha's meekly and bowed down its large head at the awakened one's feet. Buddha patted the elephant gently and turned and said to Ananda, "The only way to destroy hatred is with love. Hatred cannot be defeated with more hatred. This is a very important lesson to learn." Chapter 26, The Return. One day, Buddha said to his followers, "It is time that I return to Kipilavastu, the city of my father." And so they all began the long walk to Buddha's childhood home. News of Buddha approached quickly reached the city, and everyone became very excited and happy. At long last, they cried, "Our beloved prince is returning. Now he's a great teacher with hundreds and hundreds of followers. How good it will be to see him again." King Siddtharhar was overjoyed to hear of his son's return. When he learned that Buddha had many followers, he became proud. "My son has become a great leader after all," he thought. "He has brought great honor to my name." He could not wait for Buddha's return, so he sent a servant ahead by horse to see what his son would look like after so many years. By the next morning, the servant had arrived where Buddha and his followers were staying. They were all carrying wooden bowls. They went from door to door in the village, begging for their food. When they returned to where they were staying and ate their simple meal together in silence, the servant turned to Kiplavasu and reported all this to the king. The king was furious. "My son, a royal prince, has become a beggar?" he shouted. "My family is disgraced. I must put a stop to this at once." Immediately he rode out to the palace and went to where his son was staying. When he saw his Siddtharhar, now a radiant Buddha, surrounded by hundreds of disciples, he was deeply impressed. They greeted each other lovingly. Then the king asked, "Is it true what I hear? That you beg for your food each morning?" "Yes," was the answer. "That is true. It is our custom to beg." At this, the king became angrier than he was before. "Our custom," he shouted. "You came from a long line of kings who never had to beg for anything in their lives. Our custom is to eat from silver and gold plates, not out of a simple wooden bowl. What are you talking about, our custom?" The gentle answer came. "Father, you came from a long line of royal kings, that is true. But I come from a long line of teachers, the Buddhas of the past. The teachers have always been very humble. They receive their foods from the people they meet. When I say it is our custom to beg, I mean it's the custom of Buddhas." Then he took hold of his father's hand and walked alone with him for a long while. He taught him the noble truths and the path leading to the end of all suffering. After listening for a long time, the king said, "It is true, you are far from just my son. As the holy man, Siddha predicted, when you were just a baby, you have become a great teacher. I bow before you, O Buddha. Please accept me, who once wanted you to be a king, as one of your disciples." Soon afterward, Buddha's wife, Yashodhara, his son Rahula, the aunt who brought him up, and many others came from the palace, also asked to become his followers. "We were so unhappy when you rode away from us so many years ago," they told him. "But now you have brought us so much happiness and peace of mind with your teachings of the truth. We are glad that you have left us and have returned as a Buddha." Chapter 27. The Tale of the Tree Spirit. From the time he was 35 years old, Buddha gave his teaching to everyone who was interested. For the next 45 years, he traveled from India, bringing people peace of mind. Sometimes he wanted to teach people about love and kindness. He would tell them stories that would catch their imagination. Here is one of the stories he told. A long, long time ago, there lived a proud king. He wanted to build a very large palace for himself. So he told his ministers, "Go out into the forest, find the tallest tree there. This I should use for my palace." Deep in the forest, the ministers found such a tree. It was magnificent, and it stood surrounded by many other smaller trees. That night, they reported back to the king and announced, "Your Majesty, we have found just what you wanted. Tomorrow we shall return to the woods and chop it down." The king was very happy and went to sleep. However, that night, he had a very strange dream. He dreamt that a spirit, which lived in that tree, appeared before him. "O king," it said, "please do not cut down the tree in which I live. If you do so, each cut will hurt me very much, and I shall die." But the king answered, "Yours is the finest tree in all the forest. I must use it for my palace." The spirit pleaded, but the king was very stubborn and insisted the tree be cut down. Finally, the tree spirit said to him, "All right, you may cut it down, but please do it like this. Do not cut it down from the bottom as people usually do. Instead, have your men climb to the top of the tree and cut it down little by little. First, have them cut off one piece and then another until they have cut down the whole tree." The king was very surprised by this. "But if I have my men do as you say and cut through your trees many times, it will cause much more pain than if they cut it down just once from the bottom." The spirit answered, "Yes, that is true, but it is better for the other creatures of the forest if you do as I suggest. You see, my tree is very large. If it falls down in one big piece, it will crash into the other smaller trees around it, and it will kill many small animals. Many birds and insects will lose their homes, and many smaller trees will be destroyed. But if you cut it down piece by piece, it will not do much damage." Then the king awoke, and he thought, "That spirit would have let itself be cut 100 times so that smaller animals of the forest would not suffer. How brave and how kind it is, and how selfish of me to want to cut that tree down for my own pleasure and pride. Instead of cutting it down, I should honor it. This dream has taught me that I too should be kind and gentle to everyone." And so the king went into the forest the next day and decorated the tree. And from that day onward, he was a kind and just ruler. Chapter 28. Equal love to all. One day, Devata fell ill. Many doctors came to see him, but no one could cure him. Then his cousin, the Buddha, went to visit him. One of Buddha's followers asked him, "Oh Buddha, Why are you going to help Devata? He has tried to harm you many times. He has even tried to kill you. And Buddha answered, there is one reason to be friendly with some people and enemies to others. All people are equal in that everyone wants happiness, and no one likes to be sick and miserable. Therefore, we should have love for everyone. Then he approached Devata's bed and said, if it is true that I love Devata, who is always trying to harm me, as much as I love Rahul, my only child, then let my cousin be cured of his sickness. Immediately, Devata recovered and was healthy once again. Buddha turned to his followers and said, remember, we should not be kind to some and cruel to others. Instead, we should try to cultivate equal love for all. That is the way of the Enlightened One. Chapter 29, The Final Days. When Buddha was 8 years old, he thought to himself, I have done all I could to help others. I have taught them how to live with love and not to fear anything in life. Now it is time to show them how to leave this world without fear. So he called the faithful Anang to him and said, Anang, it is time for us to return to Kiplavastu for the last time. I wish to die in the city where I grew up. Anang was grief-stricken. Oh Buddha, he cried, please don't leave us. For so many years you have been our guide. What shall we do without you? And he began to sob bitterly. Buddha answered, do not cry, dear Anang. I've always taught that death is a natural part of life. It is nothing to fear. You must understand that. And when I am gone, let my teachings be your guide. If you've understood them in your heart, you have no need for me. Come, let's go. And so Buddha and his disciple traveled north, not far from Kiplavastu. They passed the village of Kushinagara. The Buddha asked them to stop there and rest. Then he turned to Nang and said, this is where I shall pass away. Although this was to be the last day of his life, Buddha did not stop helping others. An old man from the village asked to see him, and Buddha agreed. He listened to the man's problem and gave him kind words of advice. The man was put at ease and felt happy once again. Then Buddha went into the garden and lay down between two trees. His followers gathered around him. Some were crying, but others, their minds completely at peace, looked on silence. Then Buddha spoke for the last time. Remember what I've taught you. Craving and desires are the cause for all unhappiness. Everything sooner or later must change. So do not become attached to anything. Instead, devote yourself to clearing your mind and finding true, lasting happiness. Buddha then turned to his right side, placed his right hand under his head. He closed his eyes and very peacefully passed away. It was the full moon day of the 4th month. Chapter 30. The teaching still lives. After some time, his disciple took his body, placed it in a large pile of wood. They were going to burn it, as was the custom. But they did not get the fire to start. Then Buddha's main disciple arrived. He had been away when Buddha died, and he hurried to Kishingar as soon as he found out. When he arrived, he paid his last respect to his teacher. The wood caught fire by itself. It burned for a long time until nothing was left but some ashes and a few bones. The different kings who lived in North India at the time all wanted the ashes and bones of the Buddha. Each thought, I should build a monument to this great teacher in my kingdom and place his remains inside. This will bring me and my kingdom great honor. Since each of the kings wanted the remains, they soon began to quarrel. They are mine, said one. No, they belong to us, said another. Finally, a wise person said, Buddha spent his entire life teaching us how to love one another. Now after he has passed away, you foolish people are about to fight over his ashes? Fighting is against everything he has taught us. So instead, let us divide his remains equally, and each of you can build a separate monument to him in your own kingdom. The kings realized the wisdoms of these words and stopped their quarreling. They divided the ashes and bones of the teacher among themselves and returned to their kingdom. There they built monuments to the memory of one who taught and lived the path of peace and wisdom. And the story of the Buddha is not yet over. For just as Buddha came to this earth to show us all the path to enlightenment, even now the awakened ones are showing this path to countless others in faraway worlds. In these lands they take birth, search for the truth, show the way to awaken from ignorance, and then pass away, all for the sake of leading others to happiness. And the Buddhas have not yet abandoned those of us on this planet. Although we cannot see them with our eyes, it is still possible to find them with our hearts. For all of us have the pure Buddha nature within. And the more we overcome our closed mind selfishness, the more we open ourselves to the ray of inspiration that shines continuously from all the Buddhas in the universe. Although Buddha passed away a long time ago in a small village in India, his teaching of love and wisdom have never died. His disciple who lived with him first mastered and then passed on his teaching to others. And they in turn taught them to still others. And in this way, they have reached us today. Everyone in every country, no matter what he or she does, can learn from these teachings of the compassionate Buddha. By following them properly, we can get rid of all selfishness, hatred, and greed. We can conquer all fear and reach the same peace and understanding that Prince Siddharthar found under the tree of enlightenment. In the same way that he did, we can each become a Buddha, an awakened one. We can bring the same happiness to others that he did. May all beings be happy. The end. This audiobook adaptation was prepared from the classic children's biography of Prince Siddharthar. The story is in the public domain tradition of Buddhist teaching and may be read aloud for personal education or devotional use.
斗的笨重，心头相似。